Everyone. We had a very lengthy agenda this month with some significant applications. The first one is 109 East 42nd Street. This is the Grand Hyatt Hotel. This is in the East Midtown sub-district that was recently rezoned. The applicant is proposing to tear down the existing structure and redevelop using pretty much all the mechanisms that the new zoning text provide. As a result, the tower that they're proposing will be over 1,600 foot tall, and obviously will raise a number of environmental concerns. The stage at which we reviewed this proposal is at the very beginning. So what was issued last month is a draft scope of work. The draft scope of work basically defines what should be reviewed in the environmental study. So the question that was in front of us was not really whether we like the building or we don't like the building, or if the building should be improved or maybe masked differently or altered in any way, shape, or form. What we were looking at is making sure that the environmental impacts that this building may have are going to be deemed in scope and are going to be properly evaluated and then hopefully mitigated. It was a lengthy discussion. As you can imagine, a building of that size and that height and that bulk, raises a number of concerns. I'm going to try to just underscore the most important ones. So we're making some comments about pedestrian traffic. Very obviously, it's already a very congested area. We want to make sure that the additional pedestrian traffic that is going to be caused by this building is not only mitigated, but that the original, the sort of structural endemic pedestrian congestion is also taken into account and mitigated. We are talking about shadows and air and light. Obviously this building is going to be very tall, very bulky. As a result, it will block some of the light that accesses the streets. So we emphasize that. We talk about sustainability. We want to make sure that this building is going to be as efficient as possible, and and how it's going to be efficient. We also want to know what is the source of energy that this building is going to use. And we are also raising concerns about the base formula by which the density is being calculated. So it's actually quite interesting. I'm going to get a little more technical, so bear with me. But as you know, the FAR, the floor area ratio, so it's a ratio, meaning that it's a proportion of a fixed number that is multiplied by its numerator. So in that particular case, the site where the building is going to be built is, where the current Grand Hyatt sits. But the applicant did something that is, quite interesting, and we had not seen that before. They basically did a lot merger with the adjacent parcel, which happens to be Grand Central Terminal. So now the footprint of the qualifying development site becomes that much broader. And therefore, if you take this whole area, this whole surface, and you multiply it with the bonus FAR that they're seeking, you get a much larger number of square feet that you're allowed to build than if you were basing your calculation strictly on the size of the development site, which is the Grand Hyatt land. So we're raising that in the concerns. This is quite technical, but it's important that it is taken into the scope of the environmental review. And then, we talk about the things that were, sort of like the bread and butter of reviewing East Midtown rezoning: open space, shadows historic and cultural resources. The building is going to sit between Grand Central Terminal and the Chrysler Building, so very important, very significant historic resources. We want to make sure that the massing will take that into account and will be as minimally obstructive as a 1,600-foot tower can be. We talk about urban design and visual resources, like plugging such density into an already very dense area is quite a feast. We also want to make sure that these new developments that are coming online are not designed in a vacuum. There's a whole new streetscape that is being developed. One Vanderbilt is now almost completed, and any new buildings in this vicinity, this one is sort of like the mirror image of One Vanderbilt, sitting to the east of Grand Central Terminal. There has to be some cohesion. They should not be designed in a vacuum. I should add that in order for the developer to get this bonus density that they're applying for, they are doing some transit upgrades. We did talk about the transit upgrades at our land use committee meeting, but we feel that the Transportation and Environment Committee should take a look at it, which they're going to do. That will happen in January. So the transportation section will be, fleshed out after Tierney has a chance to look at, the granular aspects of transportation in this application. And we talk about air quality and also construction. It's going to be quite a challenge to demolish this building, which, by the way, although it does not look historic at all, the historic building is still there. It is basically behind this gross black sort of glass cladding that Trump decided to use when he took ownership of the building in the 1980s. So it's going to be quite a challenge to demolish a 1916 building and put it in the dumpster in place, and then go on to rebuilding the proposed building. So we talk about all of that, and we basically ask that the environmental impact statement incorporates all these elements and looks deep into those issues, so that we have as good a building as we possibly can. We will have an opportunity to weigh in on the project itself and its merits. That will be done when the draft environmental impact statement is released.
Fantastic work, you and your committee, really wonderful. Before we go to questions and so on, do you want to bundle any of these, Layla?
Sure. Yes, we can bundle everything.
Okay. All right. Does anyone have a conflict with this application? Raise your hand if you do. Use the raise hand feature. I don't see any. Any questions to the resolution? Clayton.
Thank you. This is such fantastic work, Layla, on the part of the committee, and I'm sorry that I wasn't there for this. My question is about the parallels between this and the Chase property on Park Avenue. The two things they have in common, well, they have a lot in common, actually. One of them, as the borough president alluded to, is that she and we were both on the record adamantly saying to city planning that we saw that these properties would be on the table for redevelopment at the time of the East Midtown rezoning deliberations that went on, and the city kept coming back to us and saying, no, you guys, you worry so much. There's no way that'll never happen. And both of them are happening. The other thing they have in common is the 10,000 square foot open space issue. And I really, really applaud how comprehensive the committee was in covering all of these potential areas of concern. When it comes to the 10,000 square feet, we had this exact thing with the Chase property. And we had all of this Sturm and Drang and back and forth, and then compromise with that applicant about that open space. And my question is, if we gained anything, I know we didn't gain anything statutorily, but that was a case-by-case situation with that property. So did the city gain anything from that fight that we can apply to the open space issue when it comes to this development? Is there anything that helps us aside from starting over from scratch with advocacy again for this one?
So with this particular application, they are actually proposing an amount of open space that is conforming and compliant with the zoning resolution. So they're not asking for any special permit or amendment. They are from the get-go proposing 10,000 square feet of open space. They may actually end up give us a little more. And when I say us, they're actually not giving us anything. It's actually the bare minimum amount to contribute so that they can get, in exchange from us, this extraordinary density. The building, it's actually kind of hard to calculate exactly what is going to be the FAR of the building because, as I explained, the footprint that they're basing their calculation is actually pretty much the entire block, including the train station terminal. But the building will be at least 30 FAR. So, the bare minimum in terms of open space, publicly accessible open space, is 10,000, and we're going to get at least that much. Now, the question with this particular project is that the proposal calls for this open space to be actually located on the second and third level of the building. And, this is unusual because it will be accessible, meaning, there will be elevators, and these elevators will, take you directly to the space, and it will be, fully at grade from, the street to the elevator and then to the open space. But nonetheless, anything that is not at grade, fully at grade, it has the perception of being less accessible. And, this is something that we talk about in the resolution, where we want to make sure that accessibility and perceived accessibility are assessed and addressed. I don't know how to do that. Maybe it's through surveys or, something, but we want to make sure that, it's a clever idea to actually locate the open space on a higher level. But we want to make sure that they don't fail. So, but we will get at least 10,000 square feet of open space. That's built in their application.
Okay. Layla, before we go on, I think when this got transferred into the package, with cutting and pasting, it says the committee vote on flood resiliency. And I think it's exactly the same, except the heading is different. Was the vote unanimous 12, wasn't it?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. Okay, fine. Any other questions to this resolution? Mike, you need to unmute.
Yes, I'm sorry. I have two questions. One has to do with Depew Alley and how that figures into the total square footage, the 16,000 square feet. And the second one has to do with the COVID putting a lot of square footage availability out. And now they're talking about adding all of these thousands and thousands and thousands of additional square feet. I'm thinking the empty state building from the 1930s. I know you mentioned something like that in the proposal, but can you explain a little bit more about how Depew Alley figures in this and about the office space, preponderance of office space?
Yes, sure. So if I think I understand your question regarding Depew Alley. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm going to respond, and then hopefully I'm addressing your question. So Depew Alley basically sits between the development site, and which is currently the Grand Hyatt, and the terminal. Depew Alley has been demapped as a street and has been incorporated into the footprint of the qualifying development site. Depew Alley is going to stay where it is, and Depew Alley is going to continue to fulfill its function. It serves as a loading area for the post office and other buildings. So the functionality is not going to change. It is just that it's been demapped. It still belongs to the city, but it has been incorporated into the qualifying site, and it will generate bonus FAR for the development. I think that was your question.
Thank you. Yes, Leila.
Okay. Now your question regarding COVID, basically, what we see, whether it's for this proposal or, similarly for the Penn Station redevelopment, the Empire Station complex, basically, when we raise these questions, the response that we get is completion is in 2030, and therefore we cannot make any assumptions based on a sanitary crisis today that we assume and anticipate will be solved, and that maybe something else will have happened, which we don't know. So basically we are in the unknown, and we're basing the development on the old normal. And therefore, these considerations are not really part of any planning. So that's a response that we receive. Whether we're satisfied with it or not, is another question. We are certainly on record saying that developing so much commercial office space in our district may turn out to be problematic, and we're actually calling in this particular document for the scope to actually to be much broader, so the radius study should be much broader to really incorporate and take into account this influx of new development, whether it is, Penn Station redevelopment, the MTA site on Madison and Vanderbilt that is being redeveloped, JP Morgan Chase that is bringing, an additional 6,000 employees into their new headquarters, the possible redevelopment of Macy's and the upzoning. So we know that, there's a number of land use actions that are in the pipelines, and that the evaluation of this particular project must be done taking all of that into account. So, we're specifically asking that they broaden the scope.
Thanks, Leila.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none, we will move into comments. Use the raised hand. David Aquilas.
Yes, just to give a little bit of background to this project. Can you hear me?
A little louder, it's a little, can you? Yeah.
Just to give a little background, in part to answer Clayton's question, if you can look at the drawing, you will see that the open space that is provided at the base of the third floor, the building itself, the base will be bowl shaped so that the building will cantilever over the open free space and rise into that space, something which I find very disturbing. The MetLife building, the Pan Am building directly behind Grand Central Station, you know what a big building that is? That's 800 feet tall. This building will be twice the size of the Pan Am building. It's directly across the street from the Chrysler building, one of the most beautiful buildings, not just in New York, but in the whole world. So there we have little Grand Central Station, that huge mass that is now one Vanderbilt Plaza, little Grand Central Station, and this huge, gigantic project, which will be directly across the street from the Chrysler building. It's a building that's taller than the Empire State Building. We've got to find some way to pull back and have some sort of level of reality to the real estate industry and what they're planning on doing. The homeless situation, it's just the homeless situation around Grand Central, we all know about. And none of this real estate that has happened in the last 10 years, including the Hudson Yards or the West 57th Street, 59th Street area, none of this has helped the city in any way that I can see. The homeless problem was there way before COVID. And here we are, we've got this project that is just so out of bounds to what the city really needs. And I hope somewhere the finishing date for this is 2030. So I'm hoping somewhere in the next 10 years, we can catch our breath and pull back on this outrageous project. That's my 2 cents. So thank you.
Okay, any other comments? I don't see any, so seeing none, we will take this to a vote.
Actually, I think it's okay to
Oh, we
bundle.
want to bundle, right? Yeah, okay. We go on to the next one, correct.
Okay, so the next application was for a site at 180